Time to get started again. My name is Steve Holt. If you know me, you know I work for Boeing. And I was asked if I'd like to introduce the next speaker. And it may seem a little odd since we're from different companies, but we're in the same business. And historically, companies in our business have definitely been competitive. And at the same time, we've worked together to help make the overall aviation industry in the world a better place. It's not complete. We've passed before ToC ICO 2012. Boeing and Embraer are both on a panel of ToC and aviation. We've watched Embraer's presentations of their journey along the way. And so it's with a great pleasure, I'd like to introduce today Edgy Aparecido and talk about Embraer's latest journey on the ToC path.
Thank you. Everybody can, thank you. Everybody can hear me, okay? It's okay? Okay. My name is Edgy, as he said. I working for Embraer in Brazil, and currently I'm responsible for new development programs at Commercial Aviation Business Unit. Embraer, on behalf of Embraer and our nearly 18,000 employees, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity to be here and share with you a little about our history, about our company, and our journey using some principles, some concepts, and some applications of ToC. I would like also to thank Priscilla, who is here, that helped a lot with this presentation, and also Marcelo Totti, that it's in vacation, is not here, that helped a lot as well. Well, before we go to the case itself, I would like to tell some words about Embraer. Embraer today is one of the greatest company in the aerospace industry, being the third largest civil aircraft producer in the world. And most of what we are today, we owe it to these two men, Casimiro Montenegro Filho and Osiris Silva. Casimiro Montenegro was a Brazilian Air Force officer who had the opportunity to be here in the US visiting MIT in the years of 1943, 1944, and based on that interaction, on the knowledge and the experience shared with the MIT Aeronautical Engineering Department, he created in Brazil the technical center of aeronautics. And under this organization, he created another institution, which is the Technological Institute of Aeronautical, one of the most important aeronautical engineering schools in Brazil. And those institutions were the base for the development of aeronautical industry in Brazil. Without that initiative from Casimiro, we would not have the strong aerospace industry that we have in Brazil today. And the Osiris Silva, those institutions, they provided the means and the brains to develop our industry in Brazil. And Osiris Silva was one of those brains formed in that school that Casimiro established, and years later he became one of the founders of Embraer. In 1965, Osiris initiated a project to design, manufacture the first aircraft in Brazil. So he started that project and inspiring people that worked with him to make that dream a reality for Brazilian community. To let you know how difficult was his challenge, he had to convince him, just to give an idea, he had to convince people at that time in Brazil that a country that did not even make bicycles could make airplanes, just to give you an idea of how huge was the challenge for him to convince people that we could establish an aerospace industry or aeronautical industry in Brazil. But he succeeded. In 1968, The Bandeirante, the name of the aircraft out of that project, flew for the first time, and in that morning of October 22nd, one of the greatest Brazilian dreams became a reality under the leadership of Osiris. And next year, 1969, Embraer was founded to manufacture the Bandeirante, which is the aircraft that we start our journey. Since the Bandeirante has flew in that morning, Embraer evolved a lot, and today we are a major player in the aerospace industry. We are present in commercial aviation, in executive aviation, and business and defense, and in the business of defense and security as well. This year, 2019, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. And those are some of the aircraft that we have today that show how we are able to manufacture, to design, manufacture, and support the state-of-the-art aircraft in the world as a result of this 50 years brave journey that begins with those giants, Casimiro and Osiris. So just a flavor of what Embraer is today and our journey since our founders. To talk a little bit about our journey using ToC, some of the principles, some of the concepts and applications. We mostly use CCPM in our company, but this journey started in the early 90s with a group of employees from our landing gear parts division, EDE, who started to read the goal and trying to implement the concepts at that time. And one of those employees is today our engineering vice president, Mauro Kern. And we invited him to help us to tell this history to you. So let's
well, first of all, it's great to have our Embraer colleagues at ToC ICO this year to talk about our Embraer E2 family development. We had great achievements with this. But the whole ToC history at Embraer goes back to the early 90s. Like many, we saw and read the goal, and that inspired us to move on and apply, the thinking processes and all the principles. And it was interesting because at that time I was one of the sponsors of this, and I did everything wrong. I sort of pushed ToC inside the organization, and the result was not good. Because, as we all know, ToC challenges some deep, strong paradigms, and I learned very early in the process that this cannot be pushed, right? This needs to be perceived and understood to make a difference in the company, right? So after this bad experience in the 90s, I had the opportunity in the early 2000s to lead the Embraer E190-E2 development. And I was very cautious about using CCPM and using all the ToC principles and practice. I even somehow disguised and used, a different terminology, different language. But, of course, understanding the principles of having uncertainty in our projects and the need to protect the project with buffers and not having everyone engaged all the time as a key to efficiency. So it was used, and it proved to be very successful at that program. It worked pretty well, right? And then in the company, people who were engaged in this somehow started to use the principles and CCPM in particular, right, in other projects, very You know, it was very limited in some areas. It was not spread all over the organization. But it became, you know, getting stronger and stronger until we found some critical mass. You know, I was leading an important part of the organization, and I didn't position myself against the use of the ToC and CCPM in the company. And the teams became really enthusiastic about all this and engaged. At a certain point, we saw that we needed to harmonize the principles and languages and the processes and all the techniques. But I also did this very cautiously as well, always getting permission from everyone, from the leadership, to do so. Not my leadership above me, but the leadership below me, right? Because they needed to really buy in and be engaged in all that. And step by step, you know, we had this harmonization all over the company. So now we basically use CCPM, and that's what we are doing inside Embraer, basically as ToC concepts and practices. And our latest development program, the Embraer 190, 195, 175 E2, was a huge success, right? In terms of time to market, it was a world record in terms of having all the goals achieved on performance, on schedule, on cost, on every single aspect. It was a great success. And I give a lot of credit to, you know, the use of CCPM and some of the ToC principles, not only in terms of the schedule, but also in terms of the overall management of the project. And I'm really happy to see that, you know, this is being presented now at ToC ICO, so that we can share, you know, some of this. And as we move forward, it's nice to see now that, you know, a kind of a different language is now spoken in the company. It's only natural now for us to talk about constraints and buffers, and the language is different, and the five steps. So it's really nice to see how this is going and how much benefit this is bringing to the company. So congratulations to my colleagues, and I hope you all have a great conference.
Mauro is one of the greatest sponsors for ToC at Embraer, and he helped a lot to with this evolution. This timeline shows some points, some important moments in our history, moments that we touched the ToC or the ToC has touched us in this journey. I do not intend to go in details for all of those milestones, but I would like to touch some of them, and of course the E2 we will go deeply. In 2022, Mauro has just mentioned that the E1 program was a very success in the company, and with that program introduction, we had a step change in our participation in the commercial aviation market. As you can see here, the blue line is Embraer. With the E1, the first generation of the jets introduction, we start to play a major role in this market. Another point that I would like to mention is with all those fleet, with that success of E1, we start to have a big fleet, and in order to respond to the demands of those customers, to keep the competitiveness of the product, we had a very big portfolio of projects to be managed. And in that time, 2008, 2009, things were not so good. Customers were not so happy with our performance, and we decided to introduce the CCPM to manage the whole portfolio. And we got very good results of that implementation. I will show some of them here. We started the go live for this introduction when we changed our organization, the process, and introduced a new tool to manage the projects. The go live was in March 2010. So here we can see that from the implementation until 1 year later, we got a significant reduction in execution time for the projects. Another important thing, when we compare 1 year before the introduction with 1 year later, we can see that our throughput of projects increased about 50% with pretty much the same pool of resources of engineering. So it was a huge gain. And maybe the most important, the customer start to be happier with us, because when we see the customer satisfaction assessment, we realized that from 2009 to 2011, we were the OEM with the greatest improvement in their perception regarding these criteria, technical solutions delivered on time. So not only for those results, but this moment was important because it was the first time that the whole organization, the whole Embraer, start to see the value of ToC, of CCPM, in terms of practical results. So it was another step change in terms of using CCPM at Embraer. And I think it's not a coincidence, but at that time, Mauro Kern was the president of Commercial Aviation Business Unit. So again, he sponsored a lot this initiative. Another important point, a meaningful one that I would like to mention is this CCPM in E175 Plus program. In 2009, we had a request from our sales guys to improve the performance or to improve the fuel consumption of this specific aircraft from E1 family, because we would have a big window opportunity in US market. In order to take advantage of this opportunity, we would have to deliver this program with those improvements by the beginning of 2014. Our first schedule was indicating end of 2014, so it was not enough. And with the application again of CCPM in this specific program, we were able to plan the delivery for the first aircraft with those modifications in the beginning of 2014. And we delivered the first aircraft with those modifications in March 2014. And with this new product, with these improvements, we were able to increase even more our participation in the market. When we see this chart here, when we look at North America participation, since 2013, when we start to sell the aircraft with those modifications, we got more than 80% of market share in terms of sales in this period until last year. And this contributed a lot to increase our market position in the worldwide perspective. So it's again another practical and real result from CCPM application in our organization. And now I will go a little bit deeply in the E2 implementation. At that time, 2013, with all those evolutions that I mentioned, we had a very good position in the market. We were present in 70 airlines around the world with the jets first generation, more than 60 countries, 1,500 aircraft flying in the world. So it was a big success. But market is always changing. And we have a new technology that came with new engines, with more efficient machines, that would provide for our customers a better results in terms of economics. So we had, in order to compete with the new competitors, we had to implement a new family of the aircraft. So we decided to start developing the second generation of the E2. And for those that are not so familiar with a new aircraft development program, it's a huge effort. Not only in terms of product development, but other work package that we need to establish in order to deliver all things related to a new product. And although in the beginning, even Embraer thought this program would be only a re-engine, which means just to change the engine, it was not the case. In order to provide the best solution for the market, we decided to go with not only a new engine, but a new landing gear, new wing, new interior, new fuselage in terms of new materials, fourth generation of fly-by-wire, new stabilizers. So it was pretty much a clean sheet design for this program. So the product itself is a huge work package that we need to deal with during a development phase. And in addition to that, we would have to establish a new industrial architecture to deliver this product to the market. So as we had a lot of changes in terms of product, we would have to have a new industrial process in order to deliver that. Another important work package is the supply chain, because we had some common suppliers comparing with the first generation, but we also would have a lot of new suppliers working with us in this new product, in this new program. And a considerable part of the work would be under their responsibility. So we would have to have a way to manage this development with their participation. In terms of service and support, we were already in the era of big data. So we would have to have an aircraft connected with the ecosystem that would allow us to have the benefits from the big data area, data analytics and things like that. So again, another important package, another huge work package to be developed. And as we had a lot of experience from the first generation, we knew that maturity would be key for this second generation. That's why when we see the customer value proposition for that program, the maturity in operation since the EIS, which stands for entering into service, the real operation, would be very, very important for our customers. Based on that experience, all those 20 million hours flying the first generation, we got a lot of interactions with customers, and through those interactions, we were able to collect more than 1,000 lessons learned from the first generation operation. And with that information, we knew that we would need to have a very, very mature aircraft, a very, very mature solution for the market. And in order to do that, we would have to do much more than we had done before. So we would have to test much more in terms of in the level of components, in the level of the systems, in the aircraft itself. So our work packages for ground and flight test would be much more larger than was in the U1. And we decided to establish for the first time in a program development what we call the Pioneer Airlines, which was a way to simulate a real operation of one airline during the flight test campaign. So it was, again, another important and great and big package of work to be done. So we would have a lot of work to do, an increasing scope comparing with previous programs. And we had a very aggressive schedule. This schedule here shows the cycle between the launch of the program and the entry into service. And our proposal, E190-E2, is on the bottom, 60 months. When we compare that with other programs in the industry, we can see that our challenge was very big. And not only because the cycle that those other programs had planned, but the cycles that they really executed. So all of those programs had important delays during their development. And our necessity was to bring this program to the market no later than 2018. And the program was launched in 2013 in the Paris Air Show, and the clock started to run for us. So that's the situation that we have. In one in one side, in one hand, we needed to start to profit sooner for our shareholders, and in order to do that, it was necessary to develop the E2 in the shortest possible cycle. On the other hand, to implement all those maturity work packages, we believed that we would need more time because it was a considerable number of new work packages. So that's the conflict that we had. How we try to solve that? We apply critical chain for each work package as an independent project. And we start to monitor, or we would implement a system to monitor the buffer consumption of each package to focus only on those critical ones that were with attendance of delay. We established the buffer. By the way, it's not only one model. We would have to develop the 3 models. Here I am concentrating in E190-E2 case, but we would have to deliver 3 aircraft to the market. And we start to monitor the buffers of those. We would start to monitor the buffers of each work package, and those packages that were in the green zone, okay, keep moving, congratulations, let's do that. For those that were in the yellow zone, we would increase our level of monitoring and attention for those packages. And for those packages that were in the red zone, those packages would receive all the support, all the help that they needed in order to revert the situation. So that's the way, to focus only or specifically in the projects that were in the red zone, to keep those the focus on those work packages, trying to revert the tendency of delay. Okay? So that's the way that we would, we decided to manage the program. And which means to have everybody working together, and to complete the certification and the entry into service, all the work package must to be finished. We cannot deliver and we cannot certify an aircraft if one of those packages are not completed. So, and the principle of that, if we go in the past, in the goal, we can see this principle there. The idea of this hike is not to see who can get there the fastest. The idea is to get there together. We are not a bunch of individuals out there. We are a team. That was the spirit. And the team does not arrive in camp until all of us arrive in camp. So that's the idea. All the work packages needed to be completed. And we need to work as a team. And as part of this team, we had our suppliers. And we need to explain them that methodology, that approach to them. And one of our colleagues, Fernando Antonio, who was in charge of this specific program, create a kind of speech, of a language of speech, a kind of metaphor to help to explain that for the customers. And we use a bike racer, a bike race as a figure to explain that to them. So those bikers that are in the beginning of the line, they are okay, they are in the green zone. Those that are in the intermediate position and start to lose speed, so we need to pay attention on those guys because they could have a problem. And the guys that are in the end of the line, they need the support to start to recover because the race will only finish when the last bike crosses the finish line. It's very similar to our environment in the program development. So we use that picture, that figure, to help them to understand our approach because things may go wrong. And when problems happen, we need everybody to help those guys that are with problems in order to continue with the race. And it seems that it worked very well. I have here a testimony of one of our major partners from Pratt & Whitney, which is the supplier of the engine, and he will help us to understand how it was to work with this approach.
So hi, I'm Graham Webb. I'm the Vice President of Regional Jet Engines for Pratt & Whitney. And I've had the pleasure of working with Embraer since the inception of our contract with them in 2012, all the way through the certification of the E190-E2. The very first day after we started to actually work together, they came and they started to discuss this whole concept of this critical path program management approach, which was somewhat new to us. And it was explained in a typical Brazilian way, which is never accepting no, that it's a really good process to actually have buffer that you use and establish at the beginning of the program. And by buffer, I mean additional schedule margin. Fernando and Antonio showed a nice photo to us of the Tour de France from an overhead perspective, showing the people out in the front that he didn't really ever talk to, the main body, which were on track from the schedule, and then those in the backpack that really received all of the love and attention from the program management team to assist with schedule compression. So the overall concept of starting early, having buffer in advance, and then focusing on your laggards was highly successful in terms of enabling that program to achieve the objective of certifying actually ahead of their publicly stated schedule. So I commend Embraer, I commend Fernando Antonio and the entire Embraer team for the approach they took. It is innovative, it was unique, took a little adjustment from Pratt & Whitney's perspective, but we all got there in the end. So thank you.
Thank you. And with everybody in the same page, we start to execute the program. And besides the design, the engineering, internal engineering activities, we implement a program to test a lot, to simulate a lot, to mature as much as possible the hardware systems, the electrical and electronic systems of the aircraft. So we did a lot. We were able to simulate, we had an engineering simulation where we were able to fly virtually the aircraft years before the real first flight. So it was another thing that we did in order to mature the systems, the software of the aircraft. And what we call Iron Bird is an integrated platform where we can test the hardware, the systems, all integrated with the software before we actually fly the aircraft. So we did a lot. All those new packages that we established, we execute during this phase. And just to give you a reference, we promised the first flight of this aircraft for the second half of 2016, because first flight is a very important moment. It's a key milestone in a program development. And we promised that first flight for second half of 2016. On February 2016, we rolled out the aircraft. We present the aircraft to the market, and actually, we would be able to fly that aircraft a couple of weeks later, in 3 or 4 weeks. But as we were ahead of schedule, we decided to continue with our testing program in trying to mature even more the aircraft, because the first flight would be the very first verification point to confirm that that plan was really working. So we continued with our tests. We performed more than 3,000 hours of ground tests before the real first flight. So it was a huge effort, and at that time we were ahead of schedule. Then we proceed with the first flight, and that would be, for those that are familiar with environment, so with the environment of an OEM, the first flight day is a unique day for everybody that works in the company. It's really an emotional moment, but for us, not only emotional, would be the point to verify if our strategy was going well. And I can show you how was the first flight. Thank you. So all those new work packages paid off because it was almost perfect first flight. In terms of history, it was the best ever first flight in the history because for the first time we got in the same first flight the maximum altitude, maximum speed, all the flight controls were in the normal mode. It's a little bit technical, but it's the first time in the history. Gears up, gears down, which is not so common. So all those packages that we introduced, that we intensified, they paid off because it was a unique first flight. The only record that we didn't broke in this first flight was the total time. And we had a few for that. But if we had the longest, we would not be able to celebrate with the people. And sorry, because it was really a unique moment. The captain decided to get back to our facility because if he completed to break the record, all the people would not be able to celebrate. So he got back and everybody celebrate that big moment. And to prove that our aircraft was really mature, in 40 years we crossed the Atlantic and take the aircraft to the Farnborough Air Show. So it's not easy, it's not common as well, but as we had so confidence in the maturity of the aircraft, we were able to do that. And we continue with the flight test to mature the aircraft. We had more than 2,000 flight hours in the test campaign. By the end of the certifications, we complete more than 50,000 ground test hours to mature even more the aircraft. So it was a huge effort. And one more thing here. Do you remember the Pioneer Airlines, that new package to simulate, to mirror the real life in the airline? We complete that program as well, including some extreme conditions. So here the aircraft is in somewhere in the in the very low temperature to test the systems, to test the aircraft operation in that conditions. All those things before we certify, before we deliver the aircraft, to gain the maturity. And we got the triple certification, again another record for industry. It was the first time in the history that one aircraft, one program got the certification from the 3 different certification authorities in the same day. So we got the certification from ANAC, a Brazilian authority, FAA, US authority, and EASA, the European authority, in February 28th, 2018. Remember, the aircraft was promised for 2018. Now we are in February 2018. And the promise would be I enter into service in 2018. We delivered the first aircraft in April 2018, and the first revenue flight for our customer, Videro, which was the launch customer, happened in April 2004. April 24th, 2018, 2 months ahead of the schedule. So that was the buffer consumption history of this program. So as you can see, we have moments that things were not really good, but we were able, as we had this methodology, we have this approach, we were able to take it back to the acceptable zone or acceptable level of buffer consumption. And in the end, you can see that we finish a little bit earlier. So when we compare with our time to market challenge established in the beginning of the project, we were not only able to complete as promised, but we finished earlier. And in terms of maturity, the current real operation of Videro, it's showing that the aircraft is going very well in terms of schedule reliability, completion rate, availability. So it was really a success the way we implement those work packages for maturity. And as Mauro mentioned in his speech as well, we were able to exceed some specification targets, some technical specification targets for this program. So in terms of noise, fuel burn, maintenance cycles, pilot training transition, we exceed many of those targets. So it was really a huge accomplishment. And we got some external recognition from our program. This is an award that we got from a Brazilian specialized magazine in terms of project, portfolio, and program management. The Aviation Week Laureate and Grand Laureate Awards. It's a very important award in the industry, and we were recognized. Our program management was recognized by this institution, by this magazine as well. And it was an important point in our journey. And as you can see here, we have other applications now that this way of management is spreading around the organization, and we know that we can do much more with the application of not only CCPM, but maybe in the future other applications of ToC, because it's really bringing real results for the organization. And then we go back to our giants in the beginning, Osiris Silva. We had this special painting in one of the prototypes for him, because he is one of our founders, one of our giants, and certainly he deserved that, and that a lot. He's often present in our events, not only for E2, but other events in the company, and he is really a big man for our company. And that brings us to the end. This is one of the statements for our company, that we live for the challenge. So that challenge that began in the late 60s, it's alive until today. And this journey, it has been, we have been working, evolving in this journey a lot. Not only for commercial aviation, where we are present, in this case it's on the commercial aviation, but in other business units of the company as well. So thank you very much. I hope that helped you to understand how we implemented that and how powerful those kind of principles and applications can be. Thank you very much. Thank you. We still have some time for some questions.
Yeah, we do. We do have some time for some questions. Anyone? Philip, Mike?
Before my question, I'd just like to, as somebody from well away, objective, no expert, confirm that what you've done has surprised and maybe in some ways shocked the aircraft industry that was getting used to the excuse that you could not finish an aeroplane on time. And you also proved that, in fact, the faster you do it, the better you do it. That's to say, as you say quite rightly, and I can confirm from what everybody says about that aeroplane, it is better than others. So just like we see in basic lean, in development it's the same. When you develop faster, you develop a better product. And so congratulations. My question is, with that kind of result and excitement with regards to critical chain in product development, have people been tempted to use critical chain in different areas, such as CapEx projects or other complex projects in Embraer?
Yes, one thing that I forgot to mention is that from maybe 2012, 2013, we had initiative in the company to spread and to harmonize. I think Mauro mentioned that, to to harmonize the concepts in other areas. Priscilla, who is here, participating on that initiative. And with the results that we were experiencing, and with this initiative to spread the concepts in all, even mostly in the engineering part of the organization, we start to have the open minds to use that in other areas. For example, in IT organization, we start to use CCPM in some of those portfolio of projects as well. So the key for that was the results, of course, and this initiative to spread the knowledge, to spread the experience that we have, not inside the company, from experience from inside the company, but from some experiences outside the company as well. So that initiative to spread the knowledge, the experience, the techniques, I think it was important to pave the way for this accomplishment as well.
Sir, congratulations for your achievement.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, can you share some example of your past learnings where you implemented something from your past learnings, or you did some solution design to arrive at such a low cycle time, maybe reduction in multitasking or reducing the transfer batch? Can you share some example which helped you in reducing this cycle time so drastically?
Okay. I believe when we introduced the CCPM in portfolio management of commercial aviation, we got very good results, but we didn't have everyone buying the idea. So the potential of the solution was not explored in its whole potential, let's say like that. And then I believe one learning that we got from that is that first, we would have to train people to understand better some concepts. We would have to put those people, everybody that would be involved since the beginning, to help to build the solution in order to understand how it would work. And we did that in the E2 when we called the suppliers and used that bike race to show them how things would be managed. So these kind of things we learned from that first application, because at that time, although we had trained more than 500 people, some of those guys were not, they really didn't buy the idea, and they were important of the solution. So on the new application or the recent ones, I believe we put more attention on these kind of things, to train the people, to bring them to the project or to the solution in the early days of the program. I believe those kind of things is something that we learned before. Another thing that I would like to mention is that I think it's a kind of basics, but the tool cannot be the drive for the implementation. You need to use the process and the knowledge as a drive for the implementation. The tool it's very important. The tool that we are using helped us a lot since the 2009 implementation, but the knowledge and the participation of the people, it's key for the success. And I can tell you, we are not there yet. We have a lot to do in terms of bringing people since the beginning, to spread the knowledge, to have everybody in the same page. We did a lot here, but we have much more to do.
Alberto.
So, thank you, Edi. It was very good to hear that. Not only as a great achievement for the Brazilian company like that, but also to see how the company was able to put together partners and suppliers and people collaborating all over the world, not only inside the company but outside the company. And I was wondering, for many years, Embraer has gotten strong and tangible benefits from these tools and the application of the tools. And now it seems that you are approaching a point where these can be really capitalized in the commercial activities, in sales, really, because the industry is used to promise those data, to promise those dates and those deliveries, and everybody who's buying the planes know they're never going to get there on time. They're never going to get in the 60 months of the 787 or something like that. They're not going to meet those, so they adapt, and they have all the contingency plans and all the older planes in work, etc. And now Embraer is entering a new era where they are promising a date and they're delivering ahead of the date. And I wanted to see what are your personal or professional impressions about what will that change in the sales and in the reception from your clients, from when they hear the next date, for the next program, the next aircraft coming along from Embraer.
Yeah. Actually, thank you for the question, Humberto. Actually, we have already capitalized in the past, because that project that I mentioned in 2012, we were able to deliver that aircraft on time with the improvements, and by doing that, we got a lot of sales, and we now have in this period more than 80% of sales order in this segment. And of course, we are getting here a lot of returns already with the E2, because the customers, they recognize our ability to deliver on time, to deliver a mature product, which is it's very important for them, because the aircraft is there to make money. So they want the aircraft flying, not on ground. And I think, if I understood your question, we raised the bar for us, and our customers and maybe the community will expect no less than these kind of results in the future. That's why I mentioned that we still need, we have a lot of things to do yet. We need to improve from the point that we achieved now, but we still have a way forward that we need to go in, because we still have a lot of things to improve, to learn, in order to respond to those demands and expectations in the future.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Eddie, thank you and congratulations that you shared this with the whole community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. For those who want to talk more, I will be here until and the Embraer team as well will be here until the last day, and we will be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.